Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from an article by Jennifer Christel, and it challenges a huge assumption we all make. What if things like housing, healthcare, and education aren't personal rewards you have to earn? What if they're actually essential infrastructure, just like roads and bridges?
I mean, we've all heard this a million times, right? It's a nice thought. It makes you feel like the stuff that really matters, love, joy, connection, is somehow separate from the world of bills and price tags.
But this is where the whole idea gets turned on its head. The article argues that sure, love and joy might be priceless, but the conditions that let you actually experience them, well, those are anything but free. To have the mental space for those best things, you need a stable foundation. You need real, tangible things, a secure place to live, access to healthcare, and a decent education. These aren't just extras. They are the bedrock of a life you can actually live.
And that brings us right to the core concept of this whole analysis. Reframing these essentials not as some personal achievement, but as the very infrastructure of life.
So what does that actually mean? Well, stability as infrastructure is the idea that these essentials aren't trophies you win, they're foundational systems, the platforms that allow a society to actually function and for people to thrive. Think about it. A bridge allows for commerce and connection. In the same way, stable housing allows for long-term planning and contribution to society.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? This isn't about luxury or making life easy. The argument here is that basic peace of mind, not having that constant nagging fear that one medical bill will bankrupt you or one bad month will make you homeless, is fundamental to a healthy, innovative, and productive society.
And that's the crucial distinction here. Comfort might be a luxury, something extra, but stability? That's totally different. That's the ability to plan your life, to think beyond just surviving the next 24 hours. And having that kind of stability fundamentally changes how a person can show up in the world. So if stability is that important, what happens when it's missing? Let's take a look at the 3 unstable pillars the article identifies and see how they can slowly erode our potential.
First up is housing. When your housing is insecure, your brain is basically forced to switch into survival mode. Thinking about the future, taking a creative risk, starting a new project, all of that becomes almost impossible when you're under the constant crushing pressure of just trying to keep a roof over your head. Next is healthcare. When getting care is treated like buying an expensive product, people start making decisions based on their wallet, not their health. They put off going to the doctor, they ignore symptoms, and they live with chronic issues that just quietly chip away at their quality of life. Fear becomes the driver, not well-being. And the article has the perfect example to make this real: dental care. I mean, why is it so often treated as separate from the rest of our healthcare? Untreated dental issues can affect everything from nutrition to job prospects to self-esteem. The fact that we draw this arbitrary line really tells you a story about what parts of a person we've decided are actually worthy of care. And the final pillar, education. When getting an education means you have to take on a mountain of debt, it stops being a public good and turns into a high-stakes financial gamble. All of a sudden, being curious becomes a huge risk instead of a resource. This kind of system ends up limiting our collective ability to reason, to adapt, and to fully participate in an increasingly complicated world. So, seeing how all these instabilities affect people brings us to what might be the most critical argument in the entire piece. This isn't about personal failure. It's about the failure of a design. Now, check out this contrast. On the left, you've got the common judgment, right? If someone's struggling, we tend to blame their character. They have a poor work ethic, or they're not responsible enough. But the article's analysis on the right offers a completely different explanation. It says these are predictable outcomes of a flawed system. The system creates constant pressure and threat, and then we turn around and moralize the very behaviors that pressure creates. So, if the current system has these big design flaws, what's the alternative? What's the payoff for building a more stable foundation for everyone? Let's look at what that stability could unlock. This goes right after that common counter-argument. The fear that if you provide for people's basic needs, they'll just become lazy. The article argues the exact opposite is true. When you remove the constant threat of just trying to survive, you don't make people lazy. You free them. You make them capable of creating, contributing, and planning for a better future. And this quote really highlights the hidden cost of our current approach. We think we're saving money by treating these essentials as individual luxuries, but we end up paying for it endlessly in other ways. We spend fortunes managing the fallout, burnout, social distrust,
and all sorts of conflicts that feel cultural but are often just symptoms of widespread instability. And that brings us right back to the beginning, but with a whole new perspective. The best things in life, love, joy, connection, they aren't separate from the practical stuff. The argument is that this practical infrastructure, this stability, should be affordable precisely because everything else we say we value as a society is built right on top of it. So we want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If we really accept this idea that stability is infrastructure, what does that actually change? How would we have to rethink our policies, our communities, and our priorities to actually build a world on that kind of foundation? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.